we are going to go through his video, and in case anybody gets any crazy ideas that we're not allowed to use his video, he has given us very specific permission to debunk this. And of course, he is more than welcome to do a rebuttal video as well, but we do have his permission to do this, so I will be playing these questions one at a time, and then John, Jaron, and I will be responding to this. In addition, we are also going to be answering a lot of FAQs that are often asked to us. One, not the least of which is, what about the star field, the southern star field, and this, that, and the other thing. And that's going to be the focus on today's show. So John, I'll tell you what, I'll leave it up to you. Would you rather go through the FAQs if you have some information, or do you think we should just start this video and go through it first? Your choice.
You've got it queued up, so we can go through. I've never seen this video personally, so we can do this first and then go through FAQs, I reckon, if that's good with y'all.
All right, sounds good. So let's do that. So I'm going to go ahead and start this video, and we will address these one at a time. And I'll stop it after every question, and we'll each give our opinion and our answer to this. So let's go ahead and hit this. Let me maximize it. I don't even know if I need to maximize it. Maybe not, but let's go ahead and play it. Here we go.
Always at eye level.
All right, let's start it.
Hello, and welcome to 25 Flat Earth Bad Memes. 1. The horizon is always at eye level. I have never seen any flat earther provide evidence that this is true. On the spherical Earth, the horizon would drop very gradually as you rose up, so that even at about 7 miles high, it would only be about 3 degrees below the horizontal. No flat earther has ever proven that it's not. 2.
All right. So there we have it. The horizon is always at eye level. You guys want to take this first, or should I go?
I'll just bring up real quick the jump by Felix Baumgartner, 128,000 feet, and he opens the door and the horizon's right there in front of you to see, completely flat at his eye level. So that's just one particular example, but I'll let you guys go.
Yeah, I mean, he says that there's no evidence for this, and yet it would be extremely obvious the exponential drop due to, vertical curvature, which we all know the calculation, 8 inches per mile squared. When you're looking across a body of water that's, 50 or closer to 60 miles, that's an extreme amount of expected vertical curvature. It's about a quarter mile or more than a quarter mile of expected vertical curvature, and we can clearly see that it's not some trick of atmospheric refraction, and it's not a mirage, but that indeed the water, the surface of the water, is a plane, and it's not curving downward away from you in all directions exponentially, and there is very good evidence for that. Not just visible viewing evidence from up to, I think that Felix Baumgartner dude went up to 130,000+ feet, and when he popped that hatch open, you're right, the horizon was right there in front of him, and they had to switch to, of course, the GoPro fisheye lenses outside of the craft to give the illusion of Earth curvature, which made New Mexico appear to take up about, 3/4 of the Earth's surface. So that was obviously, curvature due to fisheye lens. And yeah, the horizon itself, you should have to look lower and lower with altitude. Now, he said it would only be 1/3 of a degree, but that's not the point. The horizon would not raise with you continually up to 100,000+ feet. That is very good. There's very good evidence for that. He says it would drop gradually. However, that's incorrect. It would drop exponentially. There's a difference fundamentally between the term gradually and exponentially. So his premise is completely wrong. His claim is fallacious. If the Earth was a sphere, the vertical drop due to curvature would not be gradual. It would be exponential. So I would combat him right there on that.
And here's an even bigger problem that they never pay attention to. So if you are up say as high as a plane, 30,000 feet. Based on the curvature formula, you can see, I believe it's about 200 miles in every direction. I believe that's about right. Whatever that is, now picture that you're at the beach looking out at the ocean, and they say at 3 miles that you start to lose the boat. Let's say it happens at 10 miles. So you start to lose the boat, and by 15 miles, the boat is gone beyond the curvature in their mind. So at 15 miles, I've lost the entire height of a boat. But they then say that there would be not enough change to notice a building leaning. When you're up in a plane 200 miles high, now I lost a boat from the ground because it went over the curvature, meaning that the earth is curved enough that I lost an entire 30-foot high boat. Yet from 200,000 feet, I'm sorry, from 30,000 feet high, and I can see 200 miles, they're saying, no, you wouldn't notice anything. You wouldn't even notice that it's only a 3-degree change. Those two things you can't say both. And that's what they always do. That just because science says something doesn't mean it's a fact.
Right.
Absolutely true.
Right.
And also, I want to mention the fact that horizon also kind of means horizontal. And, for those that don't agree that the horizon does rise to eye level, and there is sort of an exception to that, and I'll address that in just a minute. But one of my favorite proofs that I love to show was a little over a year ago when we were in Hawaii and doing a show. I took this shot from the balcony of our 7th floor condo on Maui. Okay, and what we're looking at here is I'm looking to the north from Maui down the shore, and we have over here another condominium building which is 7 stories high. Okay, so I'm on the 7th floor. This is the 7-story high condominium buildings, and if you look and you see here's Molokai, and then you've got the ocean horizon, and look at that, it is absolutely perfectly a match to the top of that 7th floor condo. Well, this to me is one of the most compelling evidences ever that it absolutely does come up to an eye level. So, and now the caveat to that, and Jaron, I heard you mention something about this the other night on one of the chats, is that yes, when you are up at, I don't know, 35, 40,000 feet, perhaps it is possible that you are looking very slightly, ever so slightly downward to the horizon. But then again, I don't think that would necessarily have to be the case if our visual limitations allowed us to see even further out and then allowed the perspective angle to have the ground come up and meet the sky perfectly at eye level. But the counter argument to that also is if you're sitting in an airplane, you can be sitting in a middle seat and look to your left and see the horizon, and look to your right and see the horizon. And if at any point around you it was a ball, you wouldn't be able to do that, because the higher you go, the more that quote-unquote horizon where the ground meets the sky is going to drop further and further below you. And I think one thing that we need to be ready for, because, and this is something you'll hear me say a lot today, I'm sure, is I do think there's a ton of fallacies in the whole idea. For instance, why does the horizon rise to my eye level at the 3rd floor? Why does it rise to my eye level at the 5th floor? What is going on? If it is a ball, then everything from my feet down should be falling away from me. There's no reason in the world that the ball should be rising to my eye level. But what is that? If an ant is standing on a basketball and starts to rise up, there's no reason why the basketball would rise up to the ant's eye level. It just wouldn't happen.
Well, that's exactly right. And the thing is the claim is that we are exponentially smaller than an ant in that scenario, and the basketball is exponentially larger. If you really want to put it into real perspective, so it'd be more like, I don't know, an amoeba on a giant beach ball might be a better example. But even in that case, when you get up to levels that are comparable to 100,000 feet, yeah, there would be obvious dropping away due to curvature, as well as lateral, side-to-side curvature. It would be very obvious, but instead what we see is a terminating line, a horizon that is all around you, even up to 120,000 feet, and it's merely due to the Earth being a plane, and you've got atmospheric refraction, which is much thicker towards the ground, much more dense air towards the ground, getting less and less dense as it proportionally with altitude. So it creates the illusion of sort of a falling off point or a cutoff point of the plane, but instead that's just the limit of our vision due to atmospheric refraction. I would submit that if there were no atmosphere, you could see much further from 100,000 feet, but unfortunately the atmosphere becomes totally opaque and reflective at specific distances depending on temperature and density and that sort of thing.
So here's my one thing to Five Red Pears if he watches this and comments back. I think you have to either drop the boats over the curvature or you have to drop this one or the other. You can't have both, because if it's right that we're an amoeba on this giant beach ball, then there's no reason why a boat would leave our eye, our view in 3 miles and 6 miles and 20 miles. There's no way that could happen if you're going to say that we are so small that we've got to rise up so much just to see anything change at all. You can't have both, in my opinion.
Well, and you've brought up a good point in the past, and I've mentioned it in a couple of my videos as well. But an observer, let's just say you're standing at the beach and you watch a ship go over the horizon with your naked eye, and then you pull out a pair of binoculars. The ship and the hull, all the way down to the bottom, will be restored, and follow that as it goes over the so-called curve of the Earth. Bust out your high-powered telescope, and if it's a clear enough day, you'll see the hull restored yet again. So it hasn't gone over any curve. It's just merely the operation of perspective and atmospheric refraction. But let's say you had an observer standing up on a 200-foot mountain or a 500-foot mountain, sort of watching this entire line of sight perpendicular to that line of sight. He would see that boat go across a plane and not around any sort of curve whatsoever. So you're sort of triangulating, trying to find this curvature, and it simply isn't there. It doesn't exist, no matter what experiments you try to use. And in fact, I remember several sort of ex-Navy guys mentioning that they were using line of sight, I guess would be laser, high-frequency laser line of sight guidance for over 100 nautical miles. And that's simply not possible on a sphere. So there's a lot of Navy guys who are jumping on board with the truth, and I would say another good sort of proof that came out of the sort of Navy flat earthers is the fact that if you look at ISS footage from NASA, they never close any of their portholes. They never close any of the sections between the different cabins, which would be a law. I mean, that would be something that you would do for safety precautions. And if you ask anybody in the Navy, if you're on a ship or a submarine especially, that portholes, doors remain closed. And if you're in the vacuum of space, the last thing you want is, even a millimeter size high velocity projectile piercing the cabin somewhere and not having that local area sort of cordoned off from everything else, pressure sealed off. But in fact, we see that NASA never, as a rule, never closes any of their portholes, which leads me to believe further that they're just faking it.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, that's true. And not only that, in the Navy, that's kind of a court-martialable offense, or at least a non-judicial Article 15 offense, to leave those hatches open in between the sections. Because again, any section springs a leak, and that sucker's going to go down if you start getting more than a single compartment flooded. So yeah, that's kind of a no-brainer on that. So, all right. Well, I think we have sufficiently addressed that one. And I will say one other thing about it is even from alleged space, and we know that space really can't be more than 150, 200,000 feet up, I don't believe. But even from space where NASA has screwed up and not used their fisheye lens, you can very clearly see that the horizon on the Earth in the background is flat. NASA gets around this by putting their fisheye lens on, and of course, if there's anything that's dishonest, that would be it. So, all right, so let's move on.